Okay, so a lot of us are building with AI, including me. And one of the things that I know and that I've been hearing from a lot of my friends is that it's hard to just keep track of all the things that your code does or like understand the code base when you're moving so fast. So I wanted to just do a little bit of a series where we dive into open source repositories, load them into Yalla and just look through, like try to understand what they do, how they do it without clicking into the code. So understanding the code base without having to dig into the code. That's what we're doing. I will link to this one. This is an open source project called Continue. So ship faster with AI. This is another coding agent. So I know we've done Aider, which is a coding agent as well. We'll do some open source projects that aren't coding agents. These are just the ones that are at the top of my list here. So it has some kind of high level documentation about how to use it. It says you can trigger workflows in VS Code or JetBrains. But beyond this README, not too much by way of like, how does this work or what does it do? So let's see what we can learn from Yalla. So I loaded this in. I don't know much about it, so I didn't give it, very much information to see from. So Continue empowers developers to write, understand, and refactor code faster and more efficiently by deeply integrating with existing workflow, provides highly relevant AI assistance, automates complex tasks, and serves as a pair programmer. Awesome. So it's written in TypeScript, Kotlin, okay, for the JetBrains extension. Anything else oh, ink. Okay, so that's how they make it pretty in the terminal. LanceDB, I don't know that one. That's interesting. Local vector database. Okay, for semantic search. Tree sitter, cool. And GitHub Actions, of course. Okay, here's a couple of principles, technical principles. So asynchronous and event driven, that's cool. Local first, that's kind of cool. So a lot of the coding agents, like Cursor, even if you think of Replit, are like internet based or browser based. So Continue and Aider is another one, but they're focused locally. So that's pretty cool. And then it has a couple of architecture things, which we don't need to dig into right now. Let's come over here. Okay, so map this out. So it looks like the developer is on this side, and then down here are the external services. Let me zoom in. So we have the IDE, VS Code and JetBrains, so that's good. It picked that up correctly. LLM providers, looks like you can hook in different ones. Let me click on that. Yeah, it says both cloud-based and local. For chat, code completion, and editing, so that's cool. Has chat and code stuff. Continue control plane, centralized backend service, which is not in the repository, that manages auth, user profiles, team policy, shared configs, and other enterprise features. Okay, so that's kind of interesting to know, is that there's like enterprise kind of management features that are not in the open source. Okay, and then it connects with GitHub, GitLab, Jira, web search. Okay, cool. It looks like if I look here, WorkOS, so that's an authentication platform as well. Sentry, PostHog for analytics. Okay, that makes sense. Now I just want to like understand a little bit better how it works. So it looks like there's a command line, the GUI front end, a knowledge base. Okay, AI and LLM, that makes sense. VS Code extension, core application, features, interesting, contains the logic for primary user-facing AI features. I wonder, what's that? The core application is a central nervous system. It runs. Okay, so I'm curious to see the difference between those. JetBrains extension, control plane client. Okay, so I kind of want to focus up here, just learn a little bit more. Let's see. Get some more detail here. So specifically, okay, for the features, there's next edit, autocomplete, standard editing, and then the core application. Okay, so it's just like, how does it work with the IDE? How is it configured? The orchestrator. So what? Initialize all services and manages the primary message handling loop. Okay. Um, okay, this makes sense. I'm gonna now come up, close this, come up here. Okay, so the context and knowledge base, gathering, indexing, retrieving, and managing all the context info. It writes to the SQLite database and the Lance database. Okay, that makes sense. So there's the Codebase indexing engine, web and docs crawler, so that's cool. For ingesting and indexing external documentation, that's cool. Context retrieval, okay. Okay, that makes sense. The GUI, the UI component, chat view. Okay, there's some state management. And then in the command line, we have the parser, permissions, renderer, services. Okay, cool. I'm gonna come back up to container just to think about this a little bit more. So that was interesting. So the core application is like orchestration stuff, kind of like just hooking all these things together. And then the features has, how the agent is actually operating on things. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, and then I just want to see what are some of the core capabilities. So multi-line code completions, I think that makes sense and is standard for coding tools, proactively suggesting the next edit. CLI, it can load configurations. That's interesting. This file defines everything from the models to use to the custom commands to the custom provider settings. Okay, so it's like pretty configurable. It's cool. Custom, yeah, so you can plug in custom LLMs. You can define slash commands. I know that's something that people really like about Claude Code. But again, Claude Code is not necessarily built around being local, which it seems like Continue is. So retrieves context from the actively open files. Adding context to a prompt using at mentions. That's pretty standard for these tools now. I'm wondering, oh, AI generated diff to a selection of code. That's cool. Provide an instruction to refactor this. Yep, okay. I'm wondering if there's anything in here. I mean, besides it being like highly configurable, I'm just curious if we'll see anything else that's pretty unique, I guess. So creating a searchable code base index. I think they all do a version of that. Offloads tokenization. Some of these are a little bit technical. That's cool. Selects prompt templates based on a model and task. Oh, interesting. Okay, so there's like a strategy pattern and then some structure behind the scenes to make sure that like each type of thing that you're trying to do has the right form of prompt. That's kind of cool. Okay, nice. That was a fun deep dive. I'm gonna just kind of summarize what we learned here. So I think, let's see, things that I learned about Continue. Highly configurable, which is really cool. You can kind of define all of these custom slash commands. It's a lot more maybe private or like custom than something like Cloud Code or Codex might be, and runs local models, which is cool. We kind of learned how they split up some of their functionality, which is interesting. Seems like there's a lot of like containers. Well, I mean, the architecture diagram calls them containers. They're not necessarily containers as in like a Docker container or something, but just sort of groups of features, which is cool. So there's, context and knowledge base, command line stuff, all the integrations, a core application, specific features. And then I think this like enterprise support piece is kind of interesting as well. So this was cool. Okay, that was fun. I will post the link to this documentation so y'all can explore if you want, and let me know if there are any repositories that you're interested in me loading into here, and we can kind of walk through them um, together. But I think it's always fun just to kind of see like what tech stacks are these projects using, how are they designed, what features do they support without having to do a deep dive into the actual code itself. So thanks all.